What's up, my fabulous femme? It's your girl Naia, the self-crowned reaction queen, back at it again with another juicy video. Today, we're diving into something super intriguing. You'd be surprised how smart or dumb you are. The Dunning-Kruger Effect from Pursuit of Wonder. Like, what even is the Dunning-Kruger Effect? Are we all just walking around thinking we're geniuses when we're really not? I'm so ready to find out if I'm a total brainiac or just living in a fantasy world. So grab your popcorn and get comfy because this is going to be a wild ride. If you're loving the vibes, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Let's jump right into it and see what this is all about.
This video is sponsored by. In a 1999 study, psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger discovered a phenomenon that would be coined the Dunning-Kruger Effect. After giving participants of the study various tests that assessed their abilities in humor, logic.
The Dunning-Kruger Effect is wild. It's crazy how people can be so unaware of their own skills. Like, have you ever met someone who thinks they're a comedy genius but can't even land a punchline? It's both hilarious and a little sad.
Logical reasoning, and grammar. The participants were then asked to self-assess their performance in relation to their peers in the study. Dunning and Kruger found that people who performed poorly on the tests tended to believe that they did far better than they actually did, while those who performed well tended to misperceive their.
This is such a relatable moment. It's like when you ace a test, but still think you barely passed. The contrast between confidence and reality is just too real. It's a reminder that self-awareness is key, and sometimes we need a reality check.
Misperceive their performance in relation to the average of their peers. In other words, the study would discover the cognitive bias where people who are less knowledgeable or experienced in an area tend to believe that they are much more competent in that area than they actually are. And those who are experienced and knowledgeable in an area tend to underestimate or doubt their abilities. These cognitive biases are the Dunning-Kruger effect. Although the phenomenon is debated amongst researchers, and on the surface, the effect may seem paradoxical and bizarre, arguably, the cause is understandable.
This image is a perfect representation of the Dunning-Kruger effect. You've got the kid confidently pointing at the older guy, probably thinking he's a chess master. It's hilarious how sometimes the least experienced can be the most sure of themselves.
If someone knows little about a subject or has little experience in a particular area, they do not have enough experience or knowledge to recognize the degree of their incompetence. In other words, they don't know enough to know what they do not know. If you're incompetent, you can't know you're incompetent. The skills you need to produce a right answer are exactly the skills you need to recognize what a right answer is, said Dunning. On the flip side, people with more knowledge and experience in an area are aware of the complexity, vastness, and difficulty involved in being right or successful, and thus, they are likely to be more doubtful of their abilities. They also tend to think that others are more capable in the area than what is actually the case.
This visual is a great representation of the spectrum of confidence. It's interesting how perception can vary so much based on knowledge. You can see how the more you know, the more you realize how much there is to learn.
Than what is actually the case. And so, they are also more likely to underestimate themselves when ranked against others. Examples of the Dunning-Kruger effect demonstrated in studies include things like driving, where
Traffic is the perfect example. Everyone thinks they're a great driver until they hit a jam. It's wild how many people underestimate the skills needed to navigate the chaos of the road.
Studies have shown that 93% of American drivers believe they are better than average. The phenomenon is also often present in the workplace, where employees of companies tend to overestimate their performance compared to their coworkers, where as many as more than 40% of a company's employees believe that they are in the top 5% of performers. Of course,
this chess scene is a perfect metaphor for the workplace. Just like in chess, everyone thinks they're a grandmaster. But in reality, many are just making random moves. It's hilarious how people can be so out of touch with their actual performance.
Of course, everyone can't be better than most. There must be a most. Throughout the processes of learning, strategizing, evaluating, and reflecting, there is another process at play referred to as metacognition. Metacognition is the awareness of one's own thought processes. It's one's thoughts about thinking. A major part of the learning process and a major factor in being competent in something is the ability, through metacognition, to recognize patterns, errors, and problems in one's thinking and then employ strategies to deal with and overcome them. According to Dunning and Kruger, when someone is incompetent in an area, they lack metacognitive abilities in that area. As a result, this lack of awareness of their thought processes and knowledge prevents them from recognizing where and when they may go wrong. And so,
That F on the answer sheet is a classic. It perfectly illustrates the consequences of not recognizing your own limitations. It's a tough lesson, but sometimes you need that reality check to grow.
Wrong, and so, in their mind, they never do. This phenomenon can be fairly unsettling on the individual scale, to know that you don't know what you don't know. Of course, you already knew that, but the degree to which you're unaware and the areas that you might have such oversights, where you might otherwise feel pretty confident, can be disconcerting. But it's
That dartboard is a perfect metaphor for hitting or missing the mark. It really drives home the point about confidence versus reality. Sometimes you think you're aiming for the bullseye, but you end up way off. It's a reminder to stay humble and keep learning.
But it's even more unsettling when considered on the collective, societal scale. What's curious is that, in many cases, incompetence does not leave people disoriented, perplexed, or cautious. Instead, the incompetent are often blessed with an inappropriate confidence, buoyed by something that feels to them like knowledge, said Dunning. Partly as a result of the Dunning-Kruger Effect, people who are not qualified to speak on certain subjects.
This image perfectly captures that I have no idea what I'm talking about vibe. It's hilarious how some people can be so clueless and so confident. It's like their brain just short-circuits when faced with reality.
To speak on certain subjects are still some of the most confident and loudest who do. More qualified individuals, rather, tend to be less loud and less simplistic, and instead, more thoughtful and cautious. And for exceptionally high-level experts, since they tend to misperceive how big of a gap there is between them and the average person, it can be reasonably assumed that they are likely to insufficiently communicate about the subject they are an expert in with the general audience. And of course, in some cases, complex things simply cannot be fully explained quickly or in comprehensive terms to individuals who are not experts themselves. And so, out of the lot here, the incompetent but confident amateur, the competent but cautious intermediate, or the
This visual is a fantastic representation of the different confidence levels. You've got the overly confident amateur on one side, the cautious learner in the middle, and the knowledgeable expert on the right. It really highlights how confidence doesn't always equal competence.
idiot, or the exceptionally competent expert who is confident but struggles to understand and communicate with the layman. Who is more convincing to a mass audience of individuals who do not know the difference between correct and false information?
Consumindo e liberta a tua magia. Equipa de segurança da Bolt, ao teu lado, em cada viagem.
It's seemingly become more and more common to have an opinion about nearly everything. Maybe
That static TV is a perfect metaphor for all the noise out there. It's like everyone has something to say, but a lot of it is just white noise. Sometimes, you really have to sift through the static to find the signal.
Maybe it's always been this way. Maybe having access to all the world's information, but only enough time to read the headlines and the incentive to still leave a comment, has exacerbated this human tendency. Whatever the case, because of this and in combination with the Dunning-Kruger effect, some of the voices we hear the most of are the least qualified, useful, or accurate. They are, rather, voices of confidence and charisma, not nuance and care. The right voices, rather, are often quieter, harder to parse, or still looking for the right words and means to express themselves. It's now.
This image really captures the struggle of finding the right words. It's like walking a tightrope between confidence and clarity. So many people have valuable insights, but can't quite express them, while others just shout their opinions without substance.
It's natural to want to have a voice that is heard. It's desirable to be perceived, liked, followed, impactful. Being a voice of change and impact is a noble goal. But sometimes the greatest impact is silence. Does the world really need more voices, or does the world need more careful voices? Of course, the irony here, being a voice that is not silent, is not lost. But the point here is not merely about being silent outright. It is about being carefully noisy, at least attempting to be. It's impossible to have no opinions, but it is possible to have less, or be more careful around how we hold the ones we do. Once you know about the Dunning-Kruger effect, it might feel like now you are no longer susceptible to.
This mirror image is such a clever representation of self-reflection. It's like a reminder that just because you know about the Dunning-Kruger effect doesn't mean you're immune to it. We all need to keep checking ourselves and our perceptions.
Susceptible to it. Or perhaps, you might feel as though it's something you never were susceptible to. You're not the kind of person who overestimates their abilities. You're cautious and thoughtful and self-aware. You never make claims about things you don't know. You know.
This image of the archer is a great metaphor for precision and focus. It's all about aiming carefully and knowing your target before you shoot. Just like in life, it's important to be deliberate and informed before making claims or decisions.
You know your blind spots. But of course, that's not how blind spots work. In truth, do you think anyone who is subject to the Dunning-Kruger effect, overestimating their abilities or knowledge, thinks they are? The phenomenon is precisely that one does not know that they are a victim to it. The first rule of the Dunning-Kruger Club is that you don't know you're a member of the Dunning-Kruger Club, said Dunning. In fact, thinking you're impervious to the Dunning-Kruger effect is itself an example of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
This maze image is a perfect metaphor for navigating knowledge and self-awareness. It really illustrates how easy it is to get lost in our own perceptions. Sometimes we think we're on the right path, but we might just be wandering in circles.
You know just enough about the phenomenon to believe you can circumvent it, while not knowing enough to know you probably can't, at least not automatically or universally. Perhaps, however, we can overcome it more often with a certain kind of awareness and attitude. By more regularly being silent, by being willing to be a nobody, to let our voice, our presence, our existence not always be involved, we can perhaps be a victim of the effect less and be on the right side of the effect more.
This serene cloud image is a beautiful metaphor for clarity and perspective. It's like rising above the noise and confusion to see things more clearly. Sometimes, stepping back and being quiet can give us the insight we need to avoid the Dunning-Kruger effect.
In truth, the average person is well-read and experienced in a relatively small quantity of things, at best. We don't need to be in more than that. We shouldn't try or pretend to be. After a certain point, the quantity of opinions one holds is almost always inversely proportional to the quality and accuracy of them. We will inevitably often fail at correctly making the distinction for ourselves and knowing which areas we belong in and which of our opinions deserve sharing. But that's okay. The goal here is simply to try our best.
This floating brain image is a cool representation of thought and awareness. It's a reminder that striving for understanding and being mindful of our opinions is a journey. We might not always get it right, but the effort to think critically is what counts.
Ultimately, the Dunning-Kruger effect is a continual sliding scale that follows us through life. As long as we take on new endeavors, new challenges, new goals, we will be incompetent in certain areas. And as long as we are incompetent, we will be partially ignorant to the true degree of our incompetence. But as long as we continue to learn and grow, we will also uncover new knowledge, and we will continue to realign our self-perception with our actual abilities. Life is a continuous cycle of realizing how little you knew, how much you were wrong, and how...
This image of the winding path perfectly symbolizes the journey of learning. It's a reminder that growth isn't a straight line, it's full of twists, turns, and realizations. Embracing the chaos is part of the process.
And how complex things, Terrible Mistake by Olivier Saboni, and Know Thyself by Stephen Fleming, all provide highly unique and powerful insights into the nature of how we think, how we can often misunderstand our thoughts and feelings, how we can become misaligned from truth, and how we can gain back.
This compass image is a fantastic metaphor for finding direction in our thoughts. It symbolizes the journey of aligning our understanding with reality. Just like a compass helps us navigate, gaining insights from these books can guide us toward clearer thinking.
We can gain back better control. Of course, the more we learn, the more powerful and fine-tuned our radar becomes for understanding the...
This radar image is a perfect representation of sharpening our awareness. It symbolizes how learning enhances our ability to detect and understand nuances in our thoughts and surroundings. The more we know, the better we can navigate the complexities of life.
The nuances of things.
And that's a wrap, my fabulous femme. Today, we dove deep into the mind-boggling world of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Can you believe how many people think they're the best at something, only to find out they're barely scratching the surface? Talk about a reality check. From hilarious visuals to those aha moments, we explored the wild ride of confidence versus competence. Honestly, I've got a newfound appreciation for my own skills and those of the pros out there. It's a jungle of information. And trust me, not everyone knows what they're talking about, even if they sound super sure of themselves. If you had as much fun as I did, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and comment below your thoughts on the Dunning-Kruger effect. Thanks for hanging out, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Stay fabulous.